It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Optimism and threats. President Trump says he wants a meeting with Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelenskyy and sets out what is at stake at Friday's summit in Alaska.
Will Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. I don't have to say there will be very severe consequences.
No seat at the table for Mr. Zelenskyy this time, though, who lobbied allies today amid fears Ukraine could be sidelined in negotiations about its own future. Also tonight, Spain asks for help as wildfires rage across southern Europe. 3 people now known to have died, thousands evacuated from Portugal to Albania. We'll have a special report from the occupied West Bank, where settler violence is undermining hopes for peace. A grim record for Sir Keir Starmer as more migrant crossings are recorded during his time in office than in the whole of Rishi Sunak's premiership. Plus, a real problem. The Foreign Secretary comes clean after fishing with JD Vance without a rod licence. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello, good evening. Donald Trump says there could soon be a meeting between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelenskyy, even as he issued a warning to the Russian leader ahead of their summit on Friday. The US president will meet Mr. Putin in Alaska, with Mr. Trump pushing for a ceasefire for Ukraine and saying there will be very severe consequences if the Russian president doesn't agree. It has been a day of diplomatic efforts, with Mr. Zelenskyy holding talks with European leaders and Donald Trump to try to ensure that Ukraine gets a say in deciding its own future. Our Europe correspondent, Siobhan Robbins, has this report.
It was the pre-match party before the main event. Ukraine's president on a surprise trip to see the German Chancellor, in Berlin for a call with his biggest European backers, NATO, and the man who now, more than ever, could decide his future, Donald Trump. The virtual meeting hastily arranged by Chancellor Merz amid growing concerns about what might happen when Trump meets Putin in Alaska, a final opportunity to lay out some red lines.
We
made various things clear for the negotiations. We made it clear that Ukraine has to be at the table. If there were any follow-up meetings, we want to have negotiations in the right order. A ceasefire has to be the beginning of it.
Sidelined from Friday's summit, today was a chance for Zelenskyy and his European allies to bend Trump's ear one last time, with President Zelenskyy warning a ceasefire was the last thing on Moscow's mind.
I told my colleagues and the United States President and my European friends that Putin doesn't want peace. He wants to occupy our country.
And while Zelenskyy was sceptical, Keir Starmer was more upbeat, praising the US president as he led a meeting of the coalition of the willing.
As I've said personally to President Trump, look, for 3 and a bit years this conflict has been going on, and we haven't got anywhere near the prospect of actually a viable solution, a viable way of bringing it to a ceasefire. And now we do have that chance because of the work that the President has put in.
If he's right, the discussions today and on Friday could shape the future of the war in Ukraine and security in Europe. Following the meeting, the mood music from the UK, from here in Berlin, from many other places across Europe has been positive. But the reality is, come Friday, there are only 2 seats at the table. So Ukraine and its allies are going to have to hope that Donald Trump, America's self-styled deal-maker-in-chief, can do the business. And today, the president certainly sounded confident, but warned he wouldn't be taken for a ride.
There's a very good chance that we're going to have a second meeting, which will be more productive than the first, because the first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing.
Will Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
There will be
be?
consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences.
The question is, come Friday, Will President Trump remember this and the warnings from Ukraine? And will he listen? Siobhan Robbins, Sky News, Berlin.
Well, let's go live to Washington and our correspondent David Blevins. Last night, David, we were told it was seen as a listening exercise. Tonight, Friday's summit very much billed as step one of this process.
Yes, Donald Trump has said the meeting on Friday is setting the table for a second meeting, and we now know the shape perhaps of the deal he's trying to put together, and it is shaped by a number of things, not least the fact that he is the transactional president, known for you give me X, I give you Y. That's often economy driven. We have suspected since the venue was announced that they had chosen Alaska because America and Russia share an economic interest in the resources of that polar region. And tonight there are reports that Donald Trump is considering granting Russia access to rare minerals in Alaska. Now, if that's true, it comes soon after the deal he did with Ukraine, granting America access to Ukraine's minerals. So in that scenario, Ukraine is still the big loser. It loses minerals, Russia gains them, America is just the conduit. When Donald Trump talked about swapping territory over the last few days, no one imagined for a moment that he was also including US territory potentially, and that will raise eyebrows at home and abroad. Many people will regard it as a reward for Putin for the war, rather than a deterrent for the man who has a habit of coming back and asking for more. Donald Trump has said there will be a second meeting if the first one goes well, if he's able to broker a truce. That is a big if, and it begs another question. What price is he prepared to pay for a ceasefire?
David, live there in Washington. Thank you. At least 3 people have been killed and thousands evacuated as wildfires continue to burn across southern Europe. Amid a record-breaking heatwave, Spain has requested assistance from its European neighbours, with the state weather agency saying the entire country is at extreme or very high risk of fire, with temperatures reaching 45 degrees Celsius. Firefighters are tackling blazes from Portugal all the way to the Balkans. Sky's Amelia Harper has more.
This is the state of many parts of southern Europe, burning and smoking, the landscape crackling. In Greece, people watch on as the land near their homes burn. This house might not survive. Its owner tries to stop the fire spreading, just one of multiple wildfires threatening the western city of Patras. Over 7,000 people have been evacuated as emergency services assess the evolving damage, watching over the 5,000 firefighters on the ground. Overnight in Spain, similar scenes amid a record-breaking heatwave. Firefighters braced for temperatures of over 40 degrees Celsius. And this is what these fires are leaving behind: ashen landscape in a similarly affected northwest Turkey.
It happened all of a sudden because it was dry land. It was engulfed in flames with the wind. Usually this place is canopied as far as the eye can see. There was a car parked behind my car. I wasn't able to save it. All my savings are gone.
Fires have also been burning in Italy, Portugal, the Balkans and here in Albania. This, the 300-year-old St. Elijah Orthodox Church in the south. Just the latest of many European countries hit by fire.
It wasn't the norm some years ago. It is the norm now because we've warmed the earth, because of climate change. We are getting unprecedented heat waves. Every heat wave is hotter than it should have been because the whole world is warmer because of building up greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And that will continue if we keep on burning fossil fuels and deforesting.
Back in Greece, as people try to protect their homes, one question is left: when will it stop? Amelia Harper, Sky News.
Well, farm animals were among those needing evacuation in the Greek port city of Patras today as wildfires raged outside Greece's third largest city. Farmers and residents guided pets and livestock away from the flames. Aircraft are rotating between fires on the western Greek mainland, the Patras area, and the island of Zakynthos. Athens also sent assistance to neighbouring Albania, joining an international effort to combat dozens of wildfires. Back here now, 3 teenagers have appeared in court charged with the murder of a man on the Isle of Sheppey in Kent. 49-year-old Alexander Cashford died on Sunday evening. Well, let's bring in our correspondent, Alice Porter. So what do you know about this incident then, Alice?
What we know is that these 3 teenagers who can't be named for legal reasons, but what we can say is that the ones who've been charged with murder are a 16-year-old girl, a 15-year-old boy and a 14-year-old boy. There is also a 12-year-old girl who is currently in custody. And what we know is just before 7 p.m. on Sunday evening, Kent police were called to Lansdowne-on-Sea on the Isle of Sheppey to reports of an altercation involving a group of people. And 49-year-old Alexander Cashford was confirmed dead at the scene, with Kent police saying that he sustained multiple injuries to his body. And a court heard today that the attack alleged to have happened on him is alleged to have involved a glass bottle and rocks being thrown at him. Now, the 3 teenagers who've been charged with murder are all from London and are believed to have been in Kent on holiday at the time of the alleged attack. Now, they were jointly charged with murder yesterday, but today appeared at Medway Magistrates Court. Now, they stood only to confirm their name, their addresses, their date of birth, but they were accompanied by their parents. And we understand 2 of the defendants were in fact crying in court. Now, all 3 of them have been remanded at a youth detention accommodation facility and will appear tomorrow at Maidstone Crown Court.
Alice, thank you. The UK is among a growing number of Western countries planning to recognise a Palestinian state in the coming weeks, but there are doubts over what difference it would make on the ground. We've been speaking to one Palestinian man in the occupied West Bank who came home from work to find his land had been seized by Israeli settlers. His story is one among countless others where settlers feel emboldened and in many ways enabled by the security forces. This is the second of our chief correspondent Stuart Ramsey's special reports from the West Bank.
The West Bank wall is large, long and imposing. Ostensibly built to protect Israel from Palestinian terror attacks 20 years ago, it has become a symbol of Israel's determination to separate Palestinians from Israelis. But Palestinians living in the West Bank aren't living in freedom from Israel. The West Bank is occupied by Israel's military and increasingly by its civilian population, settlers, hundreds of thousands of them. I'd read about Mohammed Robin, a Palestinian man who had had his land taken off him by settlers while he was at work. He's taking us to the only place, he says, we can still see his land from without getting into trouble. It's off the main road, on gravel and dirt tracks leading to a windy hilltop. We look down at his small hold, taken from him in a single day.
That's his land.
Yeah.
What is the cars?
How long have you been here?
قديش لك أنت؟
عايش هذه الأرض بالدار من سنة 52 سيدي بناها وبقت يعني فيش فيها زيتون يعني فيها كده حوالي 500 عرق زيتون.
This land built by his grandfather from 52 and they have olive trees on it.
وأبويا زي ما تقول ضل عمر يعني أستاذ هو بكى بس شيء دعم في المصاري إننا نعمر.
His father was a teacher and supporting with money so we can invest on it.
Yeah. There's movement down below and we realise we've been spotted.
Hi, how are you? Do you speak English?
ما جاء البيت.
Sky News television rated.
جاء البيت عندي على الأرض شو المشكلة يعني؟ إيش؟ خلاص ترى ما في مشكلة.
We've just come up here because Mohammed's saying that you're onto his land and he's wondering who's going to get it back. Well, we've introduced ourselves, but I think they're trying to go back down, probably because we're here. They're not making much action, but because these settlers are armed. Not quite sure if they're heading back or what they're going to do now. Haven't seemed to want to talk very much. It's all quite peculiar. They barely speak, they just check out our cars. We don't know if they're soldiers or settlers or both. They don't identify themselves at all. One returns to the small holding, the other waits, and we decide to leave. Settler expansion in the West Bank, which will be a major impediment to the creation of a Palestinian state, is virtually continuous. It often starts with a land grab and a flag. Then the building of temporary accommodation, they're called outposts. Later, they develop into whole towns heavily guarded and dominating the landscape.
Have a clear ideological bent.
Daniel Winston is from Chicago. He's lived here for over 2 decades, and he's an unapologetic settler. He wanted to show me the valley where Joshua led the Israelites to the Promised Land according to scriptures. He, like all the settlers, believes the land is theirs and rejects any notion of a Palestinian state.
There was never a Palestinian state. Even if I were to say, okay, well, these poor people, they have to do something, they have to go somewhere, and I would say, well, not on my account, not on my watch, because not only is it not only is it inimical to my essential national interest of settling the entire land of Israel, it's also an intrinsic danger, a clear and present danger to our physical survival.
The West Bank remains at the very centre of the conflict between Israel and Palestine because without it, a Palestinian state couldn't exist. While countries like the UK might recognise it as a state, it's difficult to see, as it stands, how that would change anything on the ground. Stuart Ramsey, Sky News, in the West Bank.
More migrants have crossed the channel in small boats in Sir Keir Starmer's 13 months in power than during the whole of Rishi Sunak's 20-month premiership. The number of people who've arrived during Mr Starmer's time in government has reached 50,716, equivalent to 126 per day. If the current rate is sustained, by the end of 2025, more migrants will have crossed the channel under Sir Keir than under Boris Johnson, who spent more than 3 years in Downing Street. Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is in Downing Street tonight, figures which become increasingly awkward for Sir Keir Starmer. What response from the government then, John?
Well, the government has said time after time it's going to take a while for the new one-in, one-out scheme to work. The Prime Minister is clearly exercised by these alarming numbers. He's tweeted something like 10 times in the last few days. And the Home Office Minister, Dame Diana Johnson, said on Sky News and elsewhere that the figures were high at the moment because of good weather. That got provoked a furious response from the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, who said it's utterly deplorable that Labour think they can blame the weather for their abysmal failure to protect our borders. Now, the numbers are worth examining closely because those numbers you've just quoted, Anna, that total is because the numbers yesterday were 445 on 6 boats. The previous day, 474, that was the highest in August. What the figures show is that not only are the numbers increasing at a pretty big rate day by day, but also the number of migrants per boat is on the increase as well. Because just you look at the last few days, the 9th of August, 62 per boat, 10th, 56, the 11th, 59. Yesterday, those 445, 74 per boat. That's not the highest, 77 on the 6th of August. So the numbers are rising sharply. The government is clearly alarmed by this, and also the numbers per boat are rising, which suggests that the crossings are getting more and more dangerous. Now, the Conservatives, as you might expect, are on the attack over this. Mr. Philp not only criticised the government's excuses, if you like, as he would see it, but the explanations, but also he's been out on a boat in the Channel, and he's also been over to the camps in Calais, and he's claimed that he was approached by a man wielding a machete, brandishing it in front of him, and then he said that he and his team left quickly, but as they made their way out, bottles were thrown at them. So it's all getting pretty ugly, both the politics and indeed the safety situation both on the Channel and over in Calais. But those numbers rising very sharply will really alarm the government and the Prime Minister here.
John, at Downing Street, thank you. A teenage boy who killed an 80-year-old dog walker will not have his sentence for manslaughter increased. Bim Coley was punched, kicked and racially abused in a park near his home in Braunston Town in Leicestershire last September. The 15-year-old who killed him was sentenced to 7 years in custody. Today, the Court of Appeal rejected moves by the Solicitor General to increase that sentence. Speaking outside court, Mr Coley's daughter called for reforms to the sentences given to children.
Justice hasn't been done. And what I'm prepared to do is go as far as I can, reach out to MPs, get this changed in Parliament, to get guidelines changed so we have tougher sentences for these youths. Because if the youths are prepared to conduct themselves in the way that they do, they should be prepared to face the full weight of the law.
The brother of the Manchester Arena bomber has been charged with 3 counts of attempted murder. Hashim Abedi is accused of attacking prison guards at an HMP Frankland in County Durham in April. 4 guards were injured, 3 of them seriously. 27-year-old Abedi was jailed for life back in 2020. The Metropolitan Police says 146 people have now come forward with allegations relating to the former Harrods owner, Mohammed Al-Fayed, including rape and serious sexual offences. Al-Fayed died in 2023, but the police investigation into his conduct is also looking into people who may have facilitated or enabled his behaviour. Some positive news for homeowners today as the average 2-year fixed-rate mortgage dipped below 5%. That is the lowest it's been since Liz Truss's mini-budget in September 2022, which sparked market turmoil and saw the rate peak at 6.65%. Data shared with Sky News shows a worrying rise in domestic abuse in the relationships of teenagers and young people, involving extreme physical and psychological attacks. The charity Refuge says there's now an urgent need for better advice and education in schools. Well, Ashna Hurnag has been speaking to a woman whose abusive relationship left her with PTSD.
Marnie, whose identity we're protecting, was just 16 years old when she found herself in an abusive relationship. A once friend turned boyfriend, within months became a controlling manipulator.
When I would go out with my friends or do something, I'd get constant phone calls and messages. I wouldn't be left alone to sort of enjoy my time with my friends. Sometimes he'd just turn up there because I wasn't trusted to just go and even do something minor, like get my nails done.
A slow and deliberate pattern of abuse followed. Isolation from her loved ones, monitoring her phone and dictating what she wore. No first love, by the end, just loathing. The trauma of her experiences was only realised 10 years later.
I was told by a therapist when I got to quite a few years later, because I was kept having like panic attacks and stuff, that I had PTSD, but I didn't believe them. And I didn't believe the fact that I'd been in an abusive relationship, because no one had ever said to me, you know, that is what's happening. So I had no idea.
There are thousands of young people in relationships like this. Data shared with Sky News from abuse charity Refuge reveals a disturbing rise in domestic incidents among those aged 16 to 25 years old. In the past year, 6 in 10 young women and girls who'd reported psychological abuse said they'd experienced coercive control. More than a third said their abuser had threatened to kill them. And of the 62% who reported physical violence, half of them said they had been strangled or suffocated. Abuse is also taking new forms. Tools that are meant for safety are also now being used as a form of subterfuge.
We are seeing abuse being disguised as something that is for safety, locations being shared with partners, and that sort of being seen as a protective measure. But we know that it is a form of coercive control, passwords being shared, and a lot of young people feel the peer pressure.
Ideas so mainstream that primary school teachers are being confronted with violent and misogynistic behaviour from children as young as 9.
What we're doing is preventing what those misogynistic behaviours can then escalate onto.
Kate's charity Tender has been running lessons in healthy relationships in schools and colleges for over 20 years. They're constantly adapting.
We're finding those Year 5 and Year 6 students, so age 9 and 10 and 11, talking about strangulation, they're talking about attitudes that they've read online, so they are starting to bring in some of those attitudes from some of those misogynistic influences. There are ways that they're talking about and to their female teachers.
Each new generation bringing with them new challenges. Without the education comes understandable worry about what those attitudes can spiral into. Ashna Harinag, Sky News.
There are fears over the future of yet another high street retailer tonight after fashion accessories chain Claire's called in administrators. Around 2,150 jobs are at risk at the retailer, which has 278 stores in the UK and 28 more in Ireland. Administrators will seek a rescue deal for the chain, which has seen sales tumble thanks to weak consumer demand. The Foreign Secretary has referred himself to the environment watchdog because he didn't have a rod licence for his fishing trip with J.D. Vance. David Lammy hosted the US Vice President at Chevening House in Kent last weekend. The Foreign Office says that as soon as Mr Lammy realised his error, he bought a licence and wrote to the Environment Agency to inform them of his administrative error. And no, he did not catch any fish. Now, Tottenham Hotspur have missed out on the UEFA Super Cup after conceding 2 late goals, then losing on penalties to the Champions League winners Paris Saint-Germain in Italy. Well, Spurs had the better chances in the first half and took the lead 6 minutes before the break. Polinia's shot pushed onto the bar initially, but Mickey van der Ven scoring on the follow-up. Thomas Frank's side might even have been 2-0 up at the break, the woodwork denying them in stoppage time as Mohamed Kudus saw his flying header come off the post. But shortly after the restart, they did get a second, another free kick, and new captain Cristiano Romero in position to head in. Spurs in a great position at that point. After having one effort disallowed for offside, PSG hit back 6 minutes from the end. A fierce drive-in from Lee Kang-in, finding its way in to set up a nervy finish. And from there, Luis Enrique's team drew level in the 4th minute of added time. Gonzalo Ramos making it 2-2 at full-time to force a penalty shootout. Well, after 2 misses for Spurs, Nuno Mendes completed the turnaround for the European champions. Spurs missing out then on what would have been their 5th continental trophy by the narrowest of margins. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we will take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the Guardian columnist Zoe Williams and the Daily Mail's Whitehall editor Claire Ellicott. Welcome, lovely to see both of you. Among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front page of the Financial Times. The headline then, Trump warns of severe consequences if Putin refuses to end the war. That and plenty more, of course, too, when we come back.